Have you ever really thought about how a decentralized exchange, a DEX, actually works under the hood? It can feel like some kind of financial wizardry, right? Well, today we're going to demystify the whole thing, and we'll do it using a really simple idea, a magic trading booth at a local fair.
All right, here's the game plan. First, we're going to set up our magic trading booth. Then, we'll get into the one and only rule it follows, which is called the constant product formula. After that, we'll talk about a kind of tricky problem called impermanent loss and see how a cool AI booth manager can fix it. And then, we'll wrap it all up with why this stuff really matters.
So, I want you to picture this. We're at a bustling fair, and we've just opened a little stall called Dex Delight. Our whole job is just to let people swap one kind of token for another, like instantly and without us having to do anything. But before we can open for business, we need some tokens in the jar.
Now, we don't actually put our own coins in. Someone else, an investor we call a liquidity provider, or LP, comes along to help. They're the ones who stock our trading jar. But here's the really important part. They have to deposit an equal value of two different assets. So if ETH is worth $2,000, they'll put in exactly 1 ETH, and, you guessed it, 2,000 USDC. Just like that, our booth is live with $4,000 worth of assets.
Okay, so here's where it gets really cool. Our little booth doesn't have a person sitting there haggling over prices. Nope. It runs on one single, incredibly powerful mathematical rule. This one rule dictates every single trade that happens. That rule is called the constant product formula. It's the engine that turns our little booth into what's called an automated market maker, or AMM. All it says is this: the amount of your first token, we'll call it X, multiplied by the amount of your second token, Y, has to always equal a specific constant number that we'll call K. That's it. This one little equation, X times Y equals K, is the entire brain of the operation. It's what lets the whole thing run automatically without needing a complicated list of buy and sell orders. So let's see how it works with the tokens we started with.
Okay, so we started with 1 ETH and 2,000 USDC, right? So for us, our magic constant K is just 1 times 2,000, which is 2,000. This is the golden rule for our booth. From now on, no matter what happens, the amount of ETH in the jar times the amount of USDC in the jar must always equal 2,000.
So, someone walks up to the booth. They want to buy some ETH, and they've got 1,000 USDC to spend. So, what's a fair price? Well, we don't have to guess or look it up. The formula tells us exactly what to do.
First things first, the trader's 1,000 USDC goes right into our jar. We already had 2,000 in there, so now we have a total of 3,000 USDC. Now remember our rule? The new amount of ETH times this new 3,000 USDC still has to equal our magic number, 2,000. All we have to do is solve for that new amount of ETH.
And you don't need to be a math genius for this. We just take our constant, 2,000, and divide it by the new USDC amount, 3,000, and that gives us 0.6667. This number is super important. It's the exact amount of ETH that must be left in the jar after the trade is done to keep our formula balanced.
So what does the trader actually get? It's really simple now. We started with 1 ETH, and we know 0.6667 ETH has to stay behind. The difference between those two numbers is what we hand over to the trader, 0.3333 ETH. The trade's done, and our rule is perfectly satisfied. Magic.
And check this out. Here's the before and after. Before, we had more ETH and less USDC. After the trade, we have less ETH and a lot more USDC. The balance has shifted, and this automatic rebalancing is what actually sets the new, slightly higher price for the very next person who wants to buy ETH. Now, this whole automatic system is fantastic for traders, right? It's fast, it's efficient, but it creates a kind of hidden risk for our LP, the person who gave us the coins to begin with. Turns out this constant rebalancing can have a pretty nasty side effect.
Let's just imagine the price of ETH goes on a tear and shoots up to $3,000. If our LP had just kept their original tokens, what we call holding, their 1 ETH would now be worth $3,000, plus their 2,000 USDC. Their total would be $5,000. But because their money was in our pool, that X times Y equals K formula automatically sold some of their ETH as the price went up. So now their position in the pool is only worth $4,898.
See that difference? That $102? That's the price our LP paid for the booth automatically selling their ETH on the way up. It's a risk known as impermanent loss. They call it impermanent because, sure, if the price of ETH crashes back down to where it started, that loss can technically vanish. But if it doesn't, that loss is very, very real.
At the end of the day, here's what's happening. The pool is basically forcing you to be a contrarian trader. It sells your appreciating asset on the way up and buys more of it on the way down. So you end up with less of the token that did really well and more of the token that didn't. That's the core risk of being a liquidity provider.
Okay, so this is obviously a huge problem, right? How can you get the benefit of earning all those trading fees as an LP without getting hammered by this impermanent loss thing? Well, this is where the next evolution comes in, something we'll call an AI boost manager. You see, a standard pool is totally passive. It's just a robot that follows that X times Y equals K rule, no matter what, even if it means selling an asset that's skyrocketing. But an AI-managed system takes a totally different active approach. Instead of just passively letting your valuable assets get sold off, the AI actively moves your funds around to keep them in the most profitable spot. Yeah, think of it like having a super smart, lightning-fast helper running your booth. It's watching the market 24/7. It focuses your inventory right where the action is, so you capture way more fees. And, critically, if the price starts to make a big move, it repositions your assets before you get hit with that big impermanent loss.
You know, one of the sources had this perfect analogy. It said a normal liquidity pool is like driving a car and just pointing it straight even if the road starts to curve. But an AI manager, that's like having a self-driving car that perfectly navigates all the twists and turns for you, always keeping you on the fastest, most profitable route. So we've had our little trip to the fair. We've seen how the booth works. What's the big takeaway from all this? What's the so what?
Well, we've seen that the simple, elegant math of X times Y equals K is what makes this whole world of automated trading possible. But we also saw how that exact same process creates this nasty risk of impermanent loss. And the really exciting part is that new AI tools are now being built specifically to manage that risk, to try and get you more of the upside with less of the downside. And that really leaves us with one final big question to think about. Being a liquidity provider is a fundamental part of decentralized finance. But let's be honest, its complexity and risks have kept a lot of people away. So, if AI can make this whole process safer, easier, and more profitable, could that be the key that finally unlocks DeFi for everybody?